You are listening to Latinx America, a podcast focused on highlighting catalysts who are using, leveraging, or creating technology to help our community achieve more. With your host, Adriana Flores Ragade. Thank you for being with us today. We normally highlight people with many years of experience in their respective industries who have done a lot to make a difference in their personal and professional journeys. Today, I'm proud to highlight a young professional who has taken advantage of every single opportunity to become the person and professional that she is today. Esme Martinez works in global operations at Airbnb. Prior to working there, she began her career at Pillow, where she rose through the ranks in the operations team. We will discuss how her personal experiences have influenced her professionally and also personally, and how anyone listening can follow her path. Esme, thank you for joining us today. I'd love to start by learning a bit about your personal journey into tech.
So I think my personal journey to tech started when my parents first moved here to the United States from Mexico. And, they started working in the fields, and I was able to, realize that we didn't have an economical advantage. Mm-hmm. And so, growing up, my parents were always struggling and trying to provide for us and, always pursuing us to chase the American dream. So when I was younger, we moved to Orange County and we lived in Santa Ana, and that's where my parents picked up jobs at warehouses, cleaning houses, babysitting, a lot of under the table jobs, just to make ends meet. So at this point in my life, we were a family of 6. Mm-hmm. And so, we started from very humble beginnings. And I think it was the point where, I was little and I realized, wow, all my friends, they're normal, not normal, but, everyday kids. Mm-hmm. And I realized that my life was a little bit different. I had to work and I had to, always be around the house and, try to be there with my family, which is why I always grew up knowing family was always number one. So we rented a room in a single family home, and the family that lived there was very nice. They were able to provide the room and a roof over our head. So 6 of us lived in one bedroom for a long time of, my life. And me and my siblings would always talk about, going to college and pursuing higher education, trying to provide back and give our parents the world because, we thought that's what they deserve. They struggled a lot to even be here. So that's what we were always focused on, is just, advancing. And so I was always really good in school, and so were my siblings. And, they started their journeys too. My sister became a nurse, and my other sister just got hired at Google. So that's also another awesome story right there. Another Latina taking the spot in tech is just awesome to me. I think that, my parents have taught us enough skills and everyday, communicating is so important in tech. I think it's a huge factor because that's when you get to know the right people, and those right people can open a lot of doors for you. And that's honestly how my journey started. I decided one day when I was in school that I was going to apply to, college, and unfortunately it was overwhelmingly too much. Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't go anymore. So I went to community college and I did the 2 years. And after the 2 years, I was living in Southern California. I think at the time I was working 3 jobs. So I was working about 60-hour weeks, part-time job here. And so I was working 60 hours a week. I was so tired. I was going to school full time, and it was just so much. So I decided, okay, let me move and try to find an internship that is going to help me progress in my career. And so I stumbled across Leo Sosa, that he runs a program called Dev Mission. But at the time, he was at another company at Meta in San Francisco. And so he was running the program and needed interns and needed help teaching how to code. And I taught myself how to do that while I was in school. So while I was in school, I was taking a lot of coding classes and just learning online on my own. And it also helped that my sister was already working in tech to expose me to more opportunities and
open to your eyes to the possibilities that were out there.
Exactly.
Because you only knew what you knew within your world.
Exactly. And so I was pretty young at the time. I was just when I was in high school, I did a middle college program. Mm-hmm. So that I was able to finish my 2 years of community college. And then I was like, okay, well, like, I'm kind of done with high school. Like, what am I going to do now? I know I'm pretty young. I'm only 19 years old. And so it's crazy that I've made it so far. You look so shocked right now.
No, yeah, no. I think it's amazing because I normally don't ask my guests for their age, but I think that you've been able to accomplish. But you've also persevered. I mean, growing up in your situation with a very tight knit family, your parents as your role models of perseverance, your sister, thriving in a different industry, I think it makes a difference. And the fact that you completed, you did the middle college, you did, it's called dual enrollment program. A dual enrollment program speaks volumes of where you wanted to be. So I think sometimes for our community is the simple exposure is what's out there that we don't know about that we can join. So that's why even though you're 19, you've lived a lot. You've lived a long life.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of experiences. And I think it's powerful for someone to hear that out there because they could be in the middle of their career thinking, well, I'm not sure what step I'm going to take. And you, as a 19-year-old, could be an inspiration for them in terms of where they want to go. So I think it's great.
So I was pretty young and I was decided, okay, like I'm not going to go to school because I can't afford it. Like let me go see how I'm going to make it into the tech world because I want to be working in tech. I don't want to be working. I was working at Starbucks at the time and I was working at Pete's Coffee and at Yogurtland. So I was like, I don't want to be working these jobs for the rest of my life. So I was in Southern California and I went online and I looked up internships related to tech in San Francisco. And I found the Meta one, and I reached out to Leo and I told him, hey, I don't live in San Francisco, but I'm willing to move up here if I can get into this program. What do I need to do to get in? And, he called me and he was like, are you sure? Like that's a lot to do for, a summer program. And I was like, yeah, I'm positive. Like, I mean, if it doesn't work out, I'll just come back home to Southern California. But I want to be exposed to the tech industry. And so that jump started like my career. And I bought a one-way ticket megabus up from Anaheim to Oakland, and I stayed with my sister that was living in Berkeley at the time. And I did the program. After the program, I enhanced my coding skills. I was able to go back and intern there and, help other people learn how to code and teach them the curriculum, teach them HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Python. I'm fluent in it all. Like, I'm really good at it. I've built my own sites. I've, been able to see how my code runs and, just being able to see what you built come to life is just really exciting. And so I was able to go back and, give back to my community. And after that, I started doing a lot of networks, meetup.com, and a lot of like Eventbrite events or like Latinos in Techeria, everything I could just to go out there and like network. So I was working still 3 jobs. Like when I came up here, obviously I had to live like and pay bare rent. So I moved up here when I was 17, so I was still like hustling. Like I had to show proof that, yeah, look, I have my college, like my high school certificate, because like they wouldn't let you work full time because I was 17, but so they would always ask for my high school certificate to ensure I wasn't in school anymore. And yeah, so I would always like just hustle like random jobs and like pick up side jobs here, do cleaning jobs over there. It was just, just to make ends meet in the Bay Area because at the time, I was still a minimum wage worker. And, paying rent was not fun at that time. So I definitely did struggle. And, there was days where I was like, okay, like, am I going to eat breakfast or should I just like save it all for dinner? Like, it was like real life situations where I was like, man, making it in the Bay Area is hard. So, there was days where, you had to make life choices like that. Like, I really wanted to go out to see the movie with my friends, but I also need to like, pay like groceries for the week. Like, I guess like I don't have to go. I can't go with my friends. Like, so it was sometimes hard adjusting to being a normal, supposedly like quotations, like teenager. But honestly, it was all worth it. So, yeah. So after that internship, I went out and did all that networking, and I happened to, network with one of my sister's friends who at the time her job was hiring for an operations specialist. And like she kept on mentioning it. She was like, oh, like you should apply. Like I feel like it's something you can do. And I was like, I don't have a college degree and I'm like 17. Like no one's going to hire me. So I was very negative about it at first because I was just like, I'm just trying to go like,
day to day
and see what it's like. But then, one day I was like, well, what do I have to lose? And I think that's where I learned one of my biggest lessons is you just have to go for it sometimes because the worst thing someone can say to you is no. And I applied and I got a call back from the manager. His name was Russ, and he was just, talking to me a little bit about the role and like the qualifications for it. And everything that he stated was something I could do. I gave myself a lot of extra time to learn a lot of software. So I spent a lot of time learning Excel, Salesforce, Jira, just all these softwares that you might need, like using these operational processes. And, I was able to, prepare myself to what I thought would be coming. And so I did the interview process. It was about a 2-week process. And, I hear back and I got the job. So the moment I saw my offer letter and a salary, like I started crying in tears because I was like, no, that does not just happen. Like I'm about to go from being a minimum wage worker working 3 part-time jobs to a full-time employee in tech in San Francisco with a salary. So it was one of the most amazing moments of my life. And I called up my parents immediately as soon as I found out that I was offered a job and that I was going to be working in an office and that, things are going to get better. So that's where my career started at Pillow. And, it was a small company, definitely on.
For those of you not seeing, I'm actually crying right now on microphone because it's so inspirational. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, I started working there, and it was definitely a huge culture shock. I'm a young Latina from a low-income family, come from, renting a single room in a family home, with, beans and rice to eat every day for years in a row. I'm telling you, there's a reason I sometimes don't use the beans anymore. There's just, I had them it was so long, my family knew hunger. We knew, a lot of sacrifices that had to go into being where we are today. And that's why I'm super thankful, for my parents and my dad and my mom for always giving us that strength to keep on going no matter what the circumstance was. And because of that, I was able to be here today. So then I started working there and I was doing great. I loved my team. My manager was awesome. A lot of changes were happening. And so I had to learn how to...
Startup, right?
Exactly,
You were at a startup.
So everything was so fast paced and I was in shock. I was like, let me, how am I going to adjust to this? And I did notice I was the only Latina in the entire company. And so it was very hard for me sometimes to feel I was feeling like I was experiencing the imposter syndrome sometimes because
you didn't belong.
Exactly, because I felt like I didn't belong. Don't get me wrong. My coworkers were nice. They were all very friendly and eager to help me progress. But at the same time, it was hard to relate to anyone there and ask for help sometimes just because sometimes I felt like at the time, this was one of the lessons I hadn't learned yet is I was afraid to ask questions at first because I was scared. I was like, well, I feel like I should already know the answers to it because I don't come from a traditional background and I want to show them that I deserve my spot. I deserve to be here. So I was at first, that was my mentality. And, quickly I learned that can't be the case. You have to learn how to ask questions. You have to be able to communicate with your team. And, transparency is really important in these companies because, I think it's a big
part of the job.
Exactly.
Because people, especially in smaller companies, people know what you know, and sometimes, it's easier just to ask questions because they probably don't even know the answer too. So you're solving problems together, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I was able to pick up the role really quickly, and about half a year went by, and Lauren, my sister's friend that got me the job, decided to leave to another company.
She didn't get you the job. She put you in the path to get the job. You got the job because of your skill set. So she was part of your network. Yeah.
Exactly. She did definitely help me, but she decided that she was going to advance her career elsewhere. So she decided that she was going to leave our company and thought I would be perfect for the role that she was in. So she was my manager at the time.
Oh, wow.
And
she was a champion. She wasn't just, a friend, or she was a champion because she probably spoke with someone about the capabilities and the abilities and the skill set that you brought and how you would be great to fill her role.
Exactly. And so...
Thank you, Lauren, by the way, if you're listening.
Thanks, Lauren. And so, I was shocked and I was like, whoa, like, yeah, like I'd definitely be interested in progressing in this company. And so I was able to talk to her and Russ and, I started training for her role. And so then with her, when she left to her other company, I took over her role and I got a salary increase and just things were just obviously getting better and it was nice. So I took on definitely a lot of more responsibilities at that like startup and managed my own team and became managed different accounts and it was definitely a learning experience, and I loved it. And so, others came to me for questions, and I helped them resolve the issues. And that's when I thought I became more fascinated because I was like, where else can you go somewhere without like in any other industry like
Right.
where else can you go without a degree and be making great money and be managing people that did go to school. I worked with people that went to San Jose State, that went to UC Berkeley, that went to Stanford. I think one of them had gone to UCLA. So these are all top universities and I felt intimidated at first because at one point we were all we started off as specialists and on another I was helping them with questions and helping manage them and helping them understand questions they had in regards of process changes or new operation procedures implemented. So I was definitely able to be their help and I was like, whoa. I had just turned 18, so I was like, whoa, I am 18 and I am managing people from UCLA, from Stanford, from Berkeley. So it was very like, for me,
Surreal.
yeah, it was very
Yeah.
surreal. I didn't know how to take it. I was like, whoa, I'm living an interesting life, right? That's pretty awesome. And so, I was able to make a lot of connections with my coworkers and make a lot of genuine relationships. So I stayed there for a good amount of time. And so last December, I finally left the company and I decided to go backpacking. So I went to travel for a bit and I came back to an awesome opportunity. I had gotten an email from a recruiter and they were just like, hey, like I saw your resume and I saw you were looking. We should chat about it. And so I went on with next steps and started interviewing with Airbnb. And now I work in their operations team. So it's been pretty an interesting journey.
So you went on vacation and came back to a job with Airbnb.
Exactly.
That's amazing. And very inspiring, I think, your whole trajectory. But you do have a degree because if you did dual enrollment, you had college level courses that you were already taking, even though it's not a full, it's not a 4-year degree. You had some college experience, although you did that when you were in high school because you're brilliant, of course.
Yeah, I do have a good amount of college credits, and I don't know. One day I'm thinking of probably going back to school and finishing up. I definitely probably do one whole degree one day.
But you know what? What you're doing right now, it's putting you in the path where you want to be and where you need to be too in terms of your family life. So
Yeah.
Let's move on to, I've interviewed people in tech companies in different roles, but you're the first person that I interview in operations. Can you share what you do at Airbnb and what led you into an operations role as
Yeah.
opposed to, HR or something else?
So I think I wanted to go into operations and as I progressed back when I was in Pillow, because I was in the operations department, but I ran more of our support team as well. So I helped our support team and then did operational processes at Pillow. And that's when I realized, okay, I don't think support's going to be for me. Like, don't get me wrong, I do love speaking to people, but support is like, you're on the phone constantly, you're emailing back constantly, and that's just something that I'm not too interested in doing. Even though it is a great career, but it just wasn't for me. So then I decided to, focus more on the operational role, and I realized I was really good at that. And I started seeing our data change and like a lot of our, we had like quarterly goals and we started meeting them. And I was like, whoa, I'm really good at this. Like, what else can I do with these skills and that I'm learning? So then that's when I realized I think operations is for me just because I love the technical side of business too. I just, I do it for fun. I like building my own projects, but I don't think I can like necessarily work on a computer 24/7, like not 24/7, but just be on the computer a lot, like typing nonstop code,
Programming.
programming, exactly. So that's when I realized I love talking to people. I love implementing processes. I love like learning new things and attracting the right customers. So I think the operational side of business is like perfect for me. So at Airbnb, I decided to apply there and I started doing quality. So, there's a lot of things that make up a business. Like, so for us, it's more so we're doing, making sure that we're attracting the right customers. We're
And I'm a faithful customer of yours.
Yes. And, we're monitoring and evaluating and planning new processes. So everything we do is definitely has to make sure that it passes the quality check. And so there's a lot of things you have to do to make it into the program. And we're in charge of those processes and implementation. So we do standard enforcements on that. And so we're just definitely always like evaluating and reading what we can do to fix like the quality of the product.
Was it a change of culture, too, in terms of going from a smaller startup to Airbnb, which is a little bit bigger than your previous startup, right?
Yeah, that was definitely a culture shock. So for me, like I mentioned again, like coming from where I come from to going to a startup, definitely culture shock. Going from a startup to going to Airbnb was beyond what I ever thought. I walked in there on my first day and I walked in and it just blew my mind that I was standing in such a huge corporation and that I was going to be working there. I looked around and just, it's huge. It's an urban campus. There's 3 main buildings, like 4,000 employees in San Francisco offices only. And, we're all over the world. So there's a lot of employees. And I think with that said, it's like I was shocked, and, walking in, people seeing them come into the cafeteria and coming out with like, I would say gourmet food and like, it's just like, whoa, like I'm definitely not used to this. So I think that I was very shocked of how much of a, not genuine, but, like Airbnb is such an amazing company. I was shocked at like, how much they care about their employees, like,
How
and the
welcoming
benefits
they
and
were,
welcoming.
with that culture that they've been able to build.
Exactly.
Of embracing
Who
their
you are,
employees
yeah.
and who you are.
Like, like I definitely felt like I belonged there, like the moment like I stepped in there. And, I met some of my very like good friends on the first day as well. And yeah, and it's been interesting, like and an awesome ride. It's definitely something I can't even explain just because the amount of support like this company has given me like in a personal level is just
Right.
It's
overwhelming.
It's overwhelming.
'Cause you're going through, personal
and
situation.
so yeah, like I was definitely shocked and I was like how I started working there early this year. So 19. I was like, how am I 19 and working here? That was the first thing that popped into my head. I don't share my age at work, so that's kind of like a thing I had done. Like, but people know my friends know my age. But like, if someone asks, like, I never really share just because
You're more. You're mature. You act very mature too. So you're not your typical 19-year-old.
Exactly. Sometimes but if people ask, I'm just like, yeah, I'm 19, and they are usually all shocked.
Well, I didn't ask, but I was shocked too. But and I'm very proud of you. I'm just so proud of you. What is the difference? Let's go back to just like operations in general. What's the difference if someone is trying to get into your field? What's the difference between operations, business operations, and kind of strategy operations?
Yeah, like there's so many different types of operations. Like there's field ops, there is, like you said, business operations, strategy. There's just so many components. Like I know that, marketing operations is also a thing. So it's such a broad field where like anything that you can go into it with. It's just a really broad field. I would say that, it's the difference is like I don't know, it just varies by project because like each project or whatever you're working on is like different. So like if you're in field ops, you're usually dealing with like vendors, like supply and chain, and for like.
So in your type of operations is which one?
I would say we're like probably like business operations as well. So we're doing like standard enforcements and like implementations, a lot of like learning and development.
Well, yours has been a very non-traditional journey into tech, and you've struggled, but you've made wonderful inroads in the past 3 years since you kind of moved up here and have been doing new and
just incredible things. What would you say to someone who's actually thinking about, moving into this type of role or into this field? What can they do to prepare for this type of role?
Honestly, I think that if someone's wanting to leap into an operations role, I would definitely try to learn a lot of like softwares. Like Salesforce is a really great one to learn. So there's a lot of free courses like online where you can learn how to use their product. And I've not like I've it's used throughout so many companies. A lot of my friends, there's like a meme we send out like like on Saturdays, like where you go out and just hang out and get some coffee, and they're just like we get a message and we're like, okay, it's time to turn off like the Salesforce, like close your computers, like we're gonna go get coffee or something, and that's really important software to learn. There's other like softwares like Jerry or Excel is really important in operations. There's definitely a lot of data you're gonna need to track, and that is a really good skill to have is Excel, as well as just being able to think quickly. And I think it's more so of like everyday like skills you already have, but you just need to know how to use them correctly and efficiently. I think you always have to be quick on your toes just because you're always trying to improve the efficiency of like processes and like the product. And you're always either like learning how to manage like a new system or how to manage a new account. People skills is definitely something you need to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that helps in any
Yeah.
job, operations or non-operations. You also worked at a nonprofit. We talked about working at Meta, and as your first kind of internship, summer internship. How was that transition from a nonprofit into a corporate setting, startup that is obviously for profit?
It was really interesting. When I was working there, I was working really closely with Leo, and I was able to learn a little bit of what goes into like funding of nonprofits, and where like money gets sourced out to, and what goes to what. So I thought it was really interesting of like the flow and the environment of a nonprofit. It was definitely very community engaged, and I obviously it was very Latino centric. So I love that because when I moved to San Francisco, I wanted to be part of my community, and so I think that was really really awesome. And now at Airbnb, I would definitely say it's a diverse community, but I still sometimes like feel like it's definitely different to be there as a Latina. So it's it's been interesting just being able to try to find my
Your cohort, your
Exactly.
group, your beehive, right?
Yeah.
So, and I was invited to attend one of the Hispanic Heritage Month events that you hosted, that Airbnb hosted last fall, and I found it really valuable, and I was actually very impressed by the diversity. And
Very diverse.
yeah, it was very uplifting to see that in a company, in a growing company.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about how one keeps growing in your field and in operations in the tech world. Are there resources or networks that you recommend to people interested in joining a tech company in an operations role?
Yeah, like I said, I mentioned like Techeria. That's how I met a lot of people.
What is Tech Korea?
So it's like a Latino community focused in tech, and so we do like daily meetups in like San Francisco. I know that they have some in Los Angeles. So we just like get together and talk about like social impact of like being a Latinx in tech, and we're just a community to be there for each other. So, I was able to meet a lot of good friends there, and they taught me a lot about like the roles. I met my mentor there, named Lindsay, and she was able to teach me about roles that are not technical. And that's when I realized like maybe social impact would be good for me, or customer success. So I was definitely I was able to like bridge into what I can build on with my experience, and I think that what led me to my next career goal. And, I'm thinking that I definitely do want to go into sales. So I'm going to try to definitely have to network a lot more to learn more about the role and what I have to do to, be part of, like, get those qualifications and skills.
So that's in your future.
That's in my
great.
future.
What influencers in your field do you follow that you think we might consider following, through your social networks? Or people that you find interesting. They don't have to be considered influencers. People that influence you.
Yeah, I mean, if I had an influencer, it would probably be my mentor that I've been talking about this whole time named Leo. He's definitely
Leo Sosa.
Leo Sosa. That he's definitely a very passionate human about, the severity of, closing that diversity gap in tech. And he's very passionate about helping, like, anyone that is willing to put in work to, find a placement in tech. And I think that he's been able to provide me resources even outside the program. I mean, I've been outside the program for almost 3 years now, and I still go to him for resources like, oh, I'm trying to learn this. What do you recommend? Or, like, what can I do to give back to you? You mentioned, you saw on LinkedIn that I set up a tour for the cohort that is for summer, and they came to Airbnb. I set up a panel for them. I had a couple of my friends that are engineers, data scientists, and designers come in, and we did a panel for the students. We had lunch with them and, showed them around the office. So I've been working really closely with him, and, to this day, he still provides me resources and learning resources I'm looking for to keep advancing. Just because I'm still young and I'm just getting my career started.
So right before I launched the podcast, I met Leo and I saw him at a couple of events. And every time I see him, he always refers back to you, to the students that he's been able to impact, and he usually offers to find all kinds of students for interviews. But
Yeah.
I know he's had an influence on many people, and those are the change makers in our community and the people that are helping us change the narrative for our community. So I'm happy that he's still one of your mentors, and he's definitely someone I follow. In terms of influences, also, who has influenced you the most personally? I know we talked about your family earlier, or professionally, that has been a champion or mentors or in other ways, both either personally or professionally.
I would say personally, it would definitely, be my family, particularly, my dad. He's definitely always pushed us from the very beginning and always wanted us to keep advancing. And, at one point when I decided that I wasn't going to go to school, my dad decided to say that he was willing to sell his car just so he can get money to go to a boot camp or something, or, pursue my education. He's willing to do anything for his children. And I think that's the grit I've always craved for. And that was an awesome trait to get from him, is just always being persistent no matter what. And, he's taught me, the biggest lessons of communication and empathizing with others. And I think that that's what really led me to sometimes be able to leave an imprint. And like when I go to interviews and, my goal when I go to an interview and speak and have them, be, like, not have them be, but, when you go to an interview and they're just like, why should we hire you? Like, what can you bring to the table? I always want to make sure I leave
them with an impression.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that impression has to do with who you are as a person and how persistence and the influences in your life have led you to where you are.
Exactly. And so I always want to make sure I do that, just because my father is my rock. And, even unfortunately, even now, going from working, like 3 part-time jobs to, earning a great salary in San Francisco, it's not enough. And that's why, it sometimes breaks my heart of the Bay Area wages, just because, it's so incredibly expensive to live here that even if you make good money, it's not even that great money. But, that's the thing that he's always told me, money's going to come and go. You just got to wait for your right time. And, he's always pushing me. He's like, we're just waiting for your next career move. Like, don't worry, you got this. He's definitely always motivating me. He's like, you got to remember, I moved to the U.S. with, $50 in my pocket, and we were able to, buy a house, and we were able, you and your siblings were able to go to college. Well, my other sisters did go to college. They went to UC Davis, and my other sister went to Arizona State. And so, like the fact that you were able to buy your car, like you got to be grateful for all these things, and you just got to wait for your next career move. And that's going to be like going towards the direction you want to go. So he's always pushing me. He's a big motivator in my life. And, having him right now be sick and, unfortunately only having a couple months up with him because, his cancer is terminal. It's been really hard for me just because, like I definitely don't want to lose my rock. But,
this is the personal situation that we were talking about earlier that you're dealing with right now, and your work has been very supportive. But, having your father recently diagnosed with cancer is definitely having an impact on you. And I saw the post that you had on LinkedIn, and Esme, if it's okay with you, I'll share that you have a GoFundMe campaign going on. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because it could make a big difference for you and your family, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So, unfortunately, like when we were able to, get him down to the hospital and have that diagnosis and them letting us know that my dad is only going to be here for, 4 to more 6 months with chemo because he's not a candidate for surgery anymore because it's spread already. That, it definitely broke my family's hearts. And, we weren't expecting, sorry, I really don't want to cry, but, we weren't expecting for this to happen. And, it's crazy just because it changed our lives from one day to another to go from, trying to live your everyday life and, in San Francisco to, getting a phone call in the middle of work, that knowing that my dad just got diagnosed with, stage 4 terminal cancer. And it was just a very hard time. And this is all very recent. We found out within weeks ago. And, my sister starting her new role at Google. And my other sister is also, she's debating if she needs to quit her job to become my dad's full-time caregiver. So it was very nice of my job to let me, go work down there and be there for my family just because, the bills were just too overwhelming. And since it started to become too expensive and we started having to pay out of pocket and, we had to create and resort to a GoFundMe. So it'd be awesome if any of you guys could donate.
It's under Esme or
yeah,
what's the name
it's
of
under
it?
Esmeralda Martinez and it's help support my dad Jesus. So it would be definitely awesome if you guys can donate. Anything would be appreciated. But yeah, we started the GoFundMe to, to cover his hospital costs just because right now he's in a hospice and he can't go home because he's being fed artificially. So he's still hooked up to tubes and he's not so mobile and, definitely still can't even, eat liquids. He will throw up like any liquids. We tried water, apple juice, ice cubes, and it all just, he can't have it. His body won't take it. And so we've had to resort to the
Hospice and artificial feeding.
Exactly.
No, I just can't imagine what you're going through right now. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that you took the time to come and share your story to inspire others to follow your steps. I mean, you're young, but you're so mature, but you've also done so much. And a big part, as we heard, of your journey has been your family and especially your father. So I hope that as you come together as a family, that you appreciate all the moments and all the times that you have with him. And he sounds like a great influence and just a great role model for you. And te deseo lo mejor.
Muchas gracias.
Cualquier cosa que podamos hacer, whatever it is that we can do to support you, I'll try to do so. But thank you so much for being part of the show and for sharing your story to inspire others and help our community achieve more.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I wouldn't want to have it any other way. I definitely do want to get more Latinos in the door and get into tech. I think that we're slowly progressing, which is great.
Bueno, mil gracias, y we'll continue to follow you because I know you're going to continue doing wonderful bigger and better things, and all the love to your family.
Thank you so much.
Today's conversation with Esme gave me hope and also brought tears to my eyes. Here are some key takeaways from our conversation. First, assess your life and career situation and make a plan which includes learning a new skill set, just like she did when she taught herself how to code. Take advantage of learning opportunities, such as internships, if they help you break into a new industry. And don't be afraid to take risks. Esme took a big risk when she moved up to the Bay Area, and it paid off. Grit can help you get to where you want to be. But once you make it into a tech position, you need to get over the imposter syndrome and be okay with not knowing everything and asking for help when you need it. Finally, you also learn about what Esme is going through in her personal life. So if you can support her GoFundMe efforts to help her and her family deal with the unexpected expenses that they're confronting right now, you can go to the link on the note pages of this podcast and support her campaign.
Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Latinx America and on Twitter at America Latinx, or email any questions or ideas to latinxamerica@gmail.com. Gracias y hasta la próxima semana.